If Egypt's government falls, could it set off a chain reaction on the African continent? Joining me now from our Washington studio, someone who's been studying the region for years, Dr. Jonathan Schanzer is Vice President of Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Dr. Schanzer, welcome to Bloomberg's Bottom Line.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Schanzer, how dangerous is this situation?
Well, it is certainly a volatile situation. It's not something that we would have expected even a month ago. I think, as your correspondent noted, it started in Tunisia back in December, where there was a vegetable peddler who was forced to stop selling vegetables in Tunisia, in rural Tunisia. The protests spread to the capital, at which point they toppled the dictator of 23 years there, Ben Ali. And since that day, on January 14th, when Ben Ali left, there's been a sense throughout the Arab world that perhaps this could be repeated, that this Tunisian paradigm could be replicated.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing right now in Egypt. It's what we're seeing in Yemen. It's what we're seeing possibly in Saudi Arabia, certainly in Jordan.
Right.
So there's this potential domino effect of destabilization across the region.
Dr. Schanzer, let's talk about the economics of this. Our senior markets correspondent Julie Hyman was just telling us about Egypt 9.7% unemployment rate. And she also mentioned that there has been talk that some of this has been spurred not by the poor, but by the middle class. Does that surprise you?
Not at all. Egypt is a sophisticated country with a high level of education, and we saw these same people, I would say, take to the streets back in 2004 and 2005, what was known as the Kifaya movement, which in Egypt means enough. And they went out into the streets, encouraged by the Bush doctrine, to protest against the authoritarian government in Egypt.
Right.
It was suppressed, and since then the United States has forsaken that agenda. Now it appears to be very much on their minds again. But again, I think we're seeing the educated classes really propelling this.
Dr. Schanzer, can you talk us or walk us through the economic versus the political roots of this?
Well, let me put it this way. I'm not sure that this is entirely economically driven in Egypt. If you take a look, for example, at what's happening right now in Kuwait or in Qatar, where there is more economic stability, you're not seeing the people come out into the streets, and they live under the same sort of autocratic regimes. So in that sense, perhaps that is what's driving this. But on the other hand, if you just look at the stark political circumstances in Egypt, the fact that Mubarak has been in power for 30 years,
right.
The fact that you have a reformer, Mohammed al-Baradei, who's trying to get a seat at the table and has been blocked, the fact that Mubarak is trying to put his son back into power after he leaves. It's rumored that Mubarak himself has cancer or that he's gravely ill, so he's trying to get his son to succeed him. So I think really the political circumstances are what's driving this, but economically you can get a sense that if things were better off, perhaps this wouldn't be as dire as it is today.
Dr. Schanzer, in our last minute, Washington's response to this. What's the Obama administration's role in trying to lessen the tensions in Egypt? As a lot of people recall, the president was in Cairo in 2009, and he was talking about the relationship between the United States and the Muslim world, and also the relationship between Washington and Cairo. How is that relationship now?
Well, the relationship is obviously strained. At one point, I think the administration decided that it was going to forego this Arab reform agenda and to really reach out with a lot of the leadership to, shall we say, reset the relationships across the Arab world. Now I think the administration is in a funny position. It needs to support an ally. Obviously, this is an ally that's under pressure. But at the same time, I think it wants to be on the right side of history and support a democratic movement that I think has every right to exist. One final note of caution here, of course, is the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt is a very dangerous Islamist movement, and they are probably the most organized. So the question really becomes, if we support this democratic movement, could it be hijacked by the Islamists? This is something that no doubt the administration is looking at very carefully.
But the flip side of that is that movement and some of its supporters have said that they have renounced violence, that it is not a violent movement, but it is a political movement. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we've seen that come from the Muslim Brotherhood throughout history. What we know is that the Muslim Brotherhood still holds to a dangerous Islamist totalitarian ideology, so one cannot simply just take them at their word.
All right, Dr. Jonathan Schanzer, Vice President of Research, Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington. Sir, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.